Thank you so much to Maria for that amazing crash course in getting your business online. Now we're speaking to two incredible people that have done just that to great success. Emily Núñez, Cavness, and Betsy Núñez of Sword and Plough. So Sword and Plough is a company that puts veteran employment, waste reduction, and military to civil understanding at the centre of everything they do. So they work with veterans to repurpose thousands of pounds of military surplus and turn it into really fashionable bags for men and women. And they also donate 10% of all the profits back into veteran organisations. So they have a really amazing story to tell. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. We're thrilled to be here.
Amazing. So I want to start by asking you, Emily, like how the idea for Sword and Plough originally came about. And once you kind of had this idea that was so unique, where did you really begin? Like, what were you doing next, you know?
Sure. It's a great question. So I thought of the idea for Sword and Plough a little over 6 years ago. I was a senior in college, and at the same time, I was an Army ROTC cadet. Mm-hmm. And I thought of the idea while listening to Jacqueline Novogratz, the founder and CEO of Acumen, during a social entrepreneurship symposium. And because of something she said, it just sparked an idea in my mind. And it wasn't until a week later when Betsy came up to visit me from Boston, where she was living at the time, and I just casually told her, what would you think if I were to take, this military tent and turn it into a bag that could be a conversation starter and have a bigger purpose behind it? Mm-hmm. And she was just so enthusiastic. We immediately drove into an 8-hour-long lunch and brainstorm.
It's a long lunch.
It was a long lunch. And it was also, a little bit intimidating, too, to think, wow, we have this big idea that we want to pursue, but Betsy has a full-time job in Boston that she really enjoys. I'm a senior writing my thesis and about to commission as an Army officer with a lot of responsibility. Mm-hmm. But, we looked at each other and said, this is something that we have to do. We couldn't just let it be another great idea that never turned into something real. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing we did was we entered a pitch contest, a business pitch contest. Uh-huh. And that was a huge boost of confidence because amazingly, we won first place and some mentorship and a small grant. And I guess my first piece of advice for that is to just have confidence in your idea and don't let the title of something like a business plan competition intimidate you, because I think what was most helpful to us in that situation was just explaining why we were so passionate about it.
Mm-hmm. And you do have this amazing story to tell. How important is storytelling, and particularly online, even as a brick and mortar business? What role do you think that story plays in everything that you've done?
Well,
Kickstarter. Is this working? Okay. I think it's been the most important. It's been essentially the whole synergy of our brand in a nutshell. So a year after Emily looked at me and was like, oh, what do you think if I were to turn this tent into a tote bag? I quit my job, and 2 weeks later, we launched on Kickstarter before we had even sold a single bag or even knew if we were going to sell a bag. And that was our first opportunity to share something that we had been working on for a year with the world, really. Mm-hmm. This was something that we were working in our, 5 to 9s, and something that we had put so much time into. So being able to tell our story through video and launch on Kickstarter, and continue to tell that story on social and through our Google ads, through all of our website opportunities, mm-hmm. It's been the way that we're able to communicate a quadruple bottom line mission mm-hmm. to everyone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I guess having such a kind of personal starting point and really embodying the philosophy of the best ideas are the ones that are fulfilling a personal need and coming from a really authentic place. I guess I'd love to know what you've really learned from that. What advice do you have for finding that thing that is right in front of your eyes and making that like the North Star or like the center of your business idea?
Sure. Well, I think my advice would be, if you're trying to find an idea that you're really fired up about, I would think first about your communities and the people you spend time with, and what are the challenges that you or the communities that you're involved in face, and what skills do you have that you really enjoy doing, and how might you be able to apply those skills to the challenges that you're seeing?
Mm-hmm. And if you don't mind me asking, how much does your customer base come from, social as opposed to site traffic, and like how much of what you know about that has changed your strategy as time's gone on?
Sure. Well, so for us, we launched on Kickstarter, so it was a really natural transition to focus on an e-commerce website. Mm-hmm. And with that, it made a lot of sense for us to also focus on social media, because if someone's already online and on a social platform, the transition from there to an e-commerce website was really natural. Mm-hmm. And so we've been working on that a lot. We actually, I guess another tip that I might add is we started our social media platforms before we even launched our Kickstarter, and that was super helpful to create a community that was already really fired up about what we were doing and was cheering us on before we even started that Kickstarter campaign.
So that was almost like the starting point for everything, was like having a really engaged like social following.
Yes.
That wanted to back you.
And just putting it out there. I think for so long, Emily and I were just like working on this. We had like a private group. We would be G-chatting all the time, and it was something that we just shared between the two of us. We're like, oh, this is what the bag's going to look like. This is what our sample run needs to look like. This is where the first photo shoot would be. And then as soon as you make it public and you make a public announcement, I feel like there's a bit of a sense of relief because you can put it out there, but also there's a bit of creating a community and also accountability. So as soon as we could share it, then we could start asking people for feedback. Then we could start asking people to share it with somebody that they knew. And that's how it continued to build and build and build, is because we just put it out there. And we definitely were not ready. Like thinking back, like 2012, we did not have like pretty creative assets and like all of our images. And I think our first photo was a picture of Emily and I standing in the middle of downtown Denver holding like an Etsy banner that said our logo, because at that point we weren't even like doing real printing or ads.
Yeah, I
just put it out there.
Totally. I think don't be afraid if everything isn't as polished as it could be. I think just starting, even if it's, a photo like that is yeah, it's funny. It's fun to think back to that.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I think, like, even for myself, like, we all have that pressure of wanting everything that we put online to be perfect, and like, this is our logo from now till the end of time, and like, it just has to be, everything has to be like buttoned up. But, this is a space that's always evolving, and like, there's no harm in just kind of like letting that evolution be like a public thing.
Exactly.
I think that has really helped us develop as entrepreneurs and business owners as well too, is that same mentality with communicating things that we don't know or things that we want to learn more about. Nobody on our team had any retail or fashion experience or manufacturing experience prior to launching. And 6 years ago, after we launched on Kickstarter and raised 15 times our original goal, and Emily was deploying to Afghanistan 2 weeks later, like, it was a very serious time where we had to admit what we did not know, and we had to learn and figure it out. So Emily deployed to Kandahar, Afghanistan, and I had 2,500 Kickstarter orders that needed to be produced here in the US and had to be, the bags that we had highlighted during the video. And I worked in sales for 5 years prior to this. So I didn't know anything about manufacturing operations or productions. Like, I had to Google what is the supply chain. Like, that's where we were starting here. But as soon as I put that out there and said, I know about sales, but I don't know about creating a supply chain, and I don't know about sourcing, and I don't know about these things, I was able to immediately put the ask out there to get mentors and to be trained on that, and it was an opportunity. But if we didn't put that out there and admit what we did know or what we didn't know or what we needed help with, there was no way that we were going to grow.
Yeah. Would you say that you even kind of like thought of your online audience as like peers in that way? So you were really sharing information and trying to kind of like, use your network to learn as you went along?
Definitely. We learned developing a network of advisors has been so helpful to our company, because Betsy's right. Like, none of us had a background in e-commerce or manufacturing or fashion. And so not being afraid to ask for help and recognize when you don't know something and need help is so important.
Yeah. You kind of touched on like some of the initial challenges, but what are like the biggest challenges that you've had to face so far in the business's story, and like what have you kind of done to like overcome them, I guess?
That's a good question.
I think one really big challenge starting out was our launch, because at first we wanted to launch around Veterans Day of 2012, and then we realized, things are taking a lot longer than we expected, and at that point we weren't quite in the position where we could start. We weren't quite at 80% ready, and so we knew we needed to push the date back. So then we were going to wait until maybe around July of 2013. And then I reported to my first duty station in February of 2013, and I found out I was deploying in just a few months. And so we realized, it's now or never. We have to do the best we can and put our best foot forward. And so the whole team really rallied together. Our community rallied around us, and then after that, after this huge outpouring of support from the Kickstarter community, the biggest challenge was our just the physical distance between our team, because we were spread across 4 different time zones and 7,000 miles, and communication was a very big challenge. However, we realized there are a lot of tools out there to help us. I'm so glad that we launched in 2013 instead of a decade ago, because I was able to contribute, as much as I could, which was limited, but still to be deployed and to be able to log on to a Google Doc and see, be able to communicate in that way when Betsy was sleeping back in Boston was just pretty incredible.
Definitely.
So with that, we just learned, if we can accomplish this challenge of being across 4 different time zones and using tools like Google Docs and Google Sheets and Hangouts and all those types of tools, we knew when I got home, we can accomplish anything, So
Just
get the really hard stuff out of the way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, building on that, there's been a lot of, similar to Kickstarter, there's so much that you think is going to happen, and then there's the whole other landscape around that of what you can't prepare for because you don't know what's going to happen, or you don't know what to expect, or you haven't experienced before, so you don't know what the reaction is going to be. And we've had a lot of these, oh my gosh, moments where, Good Morning America calls us and they're like, can you come on the show in 24 hours? And I'm thinking inventory-wise, like, I don't know if I have enough product. Like, if we go into pre-order phase, like, do I have enough leather? Like, material, all of the scenarios of what happens on the back end. And like, there's so many things that go into consumer products and consumer services that customers don't necessarily see unless you're sharing every single aspect of the business on social and through your storytelling. And we've had to learn by doing, and then also learn by creating processes and systems. And that was something that I think really came from Emily's military background, is like, I knew how to figure out how much leather we needed and how many of these different pieces we needed to produce thousands of bags, but I also didn't know how I needed to create a system and a spreadsheet that would track this, and I don't know, maybe make it a little bit easier so it didn't, if opportunities came up last minute, that we'd be able to prepare for them. So I think things like, just hats off to Google, like, the majority of our supply chain and production management is all housed in Google spreadsheets and Google Docs. And it's amazing that I can go and find things easily when it's time for a quarterly inventory count or presenting information to an investor, that it's easy to find and it's something that can be shared so easily.
Yeah. What would you guys do differently if you started over today?
Oh, that's a good one. Let's see.
Or maybe like, if anything.
Yeah.
No regrets and all that.
Yeah. Well, I think you can never start too early. One thing that was really helpful to our launch and our Kickstarter campaign was the amount of press that we generated. And I think by networking and finding those connections and telling reporters, hey, we're going to be launching this idea that we're really excited about. Is this something you might want to cover? We started doing that several months in advance of the launch. But I think now thinking about it, even starting earlier probably would have just been even more helpful.
And I guess, what do you think of, like, what would your advice be for people that have had good press and have had a lot of Instagram followers and they're doing really well that way, but they're like, how do I get people to convert? Like, I need to make money as well, so the kind of the product market fit side of it. What's like the key to bridging that gap?
I think for us, it was, what was being spoken to earlier about understanding your process and your flow, or understanding your messaging and why people are reaching out to you, or why people are following you, or why people are tuning into your Instagram Live. So really figuring out the why piece, and then also figuring out how you can create unique touch points and opportunities around that. So is it a live in-person meeting? Is it, creating some type of community or fostering more conversations about that? Is it being more available for your customer? Is it creating a brand champion program? For us, one of the ways after we got our customers really engaged was creating a more formal opportunity for them to be a part of the brand. So we launched a brand champion program, and that has really blown up over the course of the past 2 years. And that's a way for us to have a touch point to the customer at all times, but also for us to be able to constantly be creating conversations around it. But for somebody that has a large following on Instagram, or somebody that has a following and wants to create a product, I think it's really thinking about a problem, a need, addressing where the connection points are, and really fully developing a brand strategy or a brand presence around that. That's been key, and that dives into your marketing, your advertising, social, email marketing, ads, everything.
How helpful has your ambassador program been in having those, like Maria was saying, those two-way conversations where you're like, what do you like about this product? What would you wish that this bag had that maybe it doesn't right now, and getting that kind of information straight from the people who are super engaged?
It's been so helpful. The stories that we hear from them are just so insightful into the customers that we may never have spoken to or met, but they have very close relationships with, and so they're very open with their opinions of what they think and the advice and the reasons for why they're drawn to our brand. And another thing that we do with our brand champions is we have an all call, so we get them. We're all together on a team call, and to be able to connect them, and then also to hear their insights together has been really both fun and helpful.
Great. Going back to your story and how personal it is to you both, what advice would you have for people that, would help them to kind of, like, maybe they have a business now, they have a product now, but it's, not quite like making an impact in the marketplace. Like, what advice would you have for really like breaking through, as a brand, and having a point of difference that you can really like not be afraid to shout about, I guess?
Well, I think for us, Sword and Plow, our quadruple bottom line mission is just so is what really motivates us every day to get up and to work so hard. And so I think the more you can communicate your story and why you're passionate about your business is going to be crucial to the success and getting the word out to other people and media outlets and things like that. So I think knowing your why behind what you're doing and really communicating that is something that I think has been really helpful to our brand.
Oh yeah. I think also like knowing the why and simultaneously thinking about your unique value proposition and truly embracing your unique individuality. I mean, there are there's so many people that have businesses, but what is unique about your story? What is the thing that you want to be remembered for? What do you want somebody to know about your product? And think about it. Like right now, there's so many ways for businesses to have impact through their messaging, through their communication, through being an activist for something, an advocate for anything. And there are so many unique opportunities to build an impact at some stage of your business, any stage.
Yeah.
Whether it's product, whether it's service, whether it's communication, there's so many opportunities for that. I challenge like everyone to think about who they are and embracing their own individuality while also thinking about how can they make something matter and make something very impactful. And that piece, when you can find that intersection with your storytelling, is going to be engaging, is going to get somebody to read your press pitch letter, is going to be appealing when you cold email, the producer at the Today Show. It's think about the why, think about who you are, and write something, meaningful or build something meaningful that has impact to share with somebody.
And I think going off that, a really good way to communicate that story and that impact and your passion behind something is video. We've seen that, writing something can be effective, but sometimes you need a video to fully encompass the complexity of your idea or the emotional side of your idea or the impact behind it. And that video has been something that's been really fun for Sword and Plow to work on. And whether we're telling our story or the stories of our veteran-owned manufacturers, I know we've enjoyed it, and it's been fun to see our community react to that.
They're amazing videos.
Oh, thanks.
And I think it is a really amazing format for any brand that is looking to have like a social impact and, really like stand for something, like have their values really like readily communicated. So great examples to follow if you want to go to Sword and Plow and check out what these guys are doing. We're going to open up to questions now for these guys, if anyone has any. Yeah. So you're asking where to find manufacturers and suppliers, where to research for that information and just like get those people to work with you.
So that's a great question, and I think there's more and more manufacturing happening in the U.S., which is really exciting. I know mostly about Made in USA manufacturing. I would love to speak to you afterwards, and I can write down your email and email you some links, but we found the majority of ours through Google and through networking and events. I mean, you were Googling very specific manufacturers.
Yeah, I did a lot of, I found our first one through Google and then just picking up the phone and calling and trying to find more information that way. Google has been...
I think to save yourself a little, to save yourself some steps or like some resistance in getting started, if you can find local manufacturers, that not only reduces like the environmental impact of sometimes your work or your business, but it can also create an opportunity for you to have more seamless communication. So we started working locally in Colorado and then built our supply chain from 1 to 5 manufacturers here in the U.S. But I'd love to learn about where you live and even potentially provide you with some suggestions on where to start. But I mean, Los Angeles has a great manufacturing hub here, as well as New York and the Navy Yard, and there's a lot of cities that are really providing amazing manufacturing and products, and would love to chat with you afterwards.
Thank you. Who else has a question? Yes. Where can we buy your stuff?
Oh, well, we can definitely help you out with that. So the best place is just to Google swordandplow.com. And we have a discount code for everyone attending, so you can get 20% off all of our product line with just the code Girlboss20 at checkout. You can also find us on Instagram, but we'd love to help you find a bag. We've got lots of great bags in addition to the tote bag. But
we also have jewelry made out of repurposed bullet casing.
Gunmetal. I know. Yeah. It's cool. Other questions? Yeah, down the back. Yeah, so the question was, how do you effectively scale from a business that offers like one very specific thing to something that really evolves in a manageable way, I guess, to include like all kinds of product lines?
That's a great question. So we started out with just 3 bags, our signature tote, rucksack, and messenger. And those were the only 3 bags that we had almost for the first that first fiscal year. And then we just started thinking about other products that we would want to have. So that was a natural transition to expand upon the line. But I think also not getting too overwhelmed is important to keep in mind, because you don't have to grow your line from 3 products to 65 different SKUs, which we have over 6 years. But it's been 6 years, and a great thing to do is to make a calendar of how many products you aim to launch that year and what are the dates that would make the most sense, because product launches are also a great time to generate more press and excitement around your company. So I think making a calendar and then a design timeline that back planning from that ideal launch date to when you need to start designing, when you need to work with your manufacturer to get the first prototype and then receive it and make edits to that. But then as you start to expand your product line, it's really helpful to, whether you're using Shopify or whatever medium, to look at what are your best-selling products and how can you do more of that. So whether it's adding additional color options to that product or making a smaller or bigger version. For example, we started out with that signature tote, and then from there, we've since added a mini signature tote and one that also has a zip instead of just a hook. So those are a few examples of how we've kind of iterated on that first one.
And I think just 2 things to add on to that is, one, in addition to thinking about like what would we like to see, or like what products did we want to have. Like Emily and I grew up with so many like small little things about tote bags that would just like annoy us, and then we wanted to fix that. So like I lived in Boston for years and had like, or if you live in New York, anywhere where there's cold weather and you're familiar with a puffy jacket and you've got like, I can't do this anymore with the shoulder strap or like the backpack strap falling off. So it was like slip resistant straps. But in addition to what we wanted to see in our ideal product, it was also like crucial that from the very beginning, like when we created that Facebook group before we even had like, we'll just say like our creative branding together, was like tapping into our customer base. So on a very regular basis, we'll send out Google surveys to our brand champions in their own Facebook group, or we'll send out a survey to our audience. Actually, that's one of the things that's built into our email flow, is after somebody's made a purchase, I think it's like 1 week, 2 weeks afterwards, they're getting a product survey. And one of the questions in that, and there's a lot of resources online that you can learn about or read that will help you tailor a survey so that 1, it's not cumbersome, 2, it's within a few amount of questions so you can get the max information out of it. But so the big piece for us was, in addition to what we wanted to see in our products, what did our customers want? What did they need? What did they expect? What did they want to see next? And surveys were incredibly helpful for us to incorporate that into our strategy with our calendar and create press launches around it. And then 2, the second piece is, and this is something that I think will always stay with me, and our angel investor, Alan Hassenfeld, who's the former CEO and chairman of Hasbro Toys, told us this like very, very early on, year 1. He said, nail it before you scale it. And that has been incredibly helpful, because every single time Emily and I are like, oh, what if we do this? Or like, what if we did this in this color? Or like, what if we flew to this place and did this event here, this pop-up? We would constantly go back to that. And it was like, is this serving the current need or where we see ourselves in the next 12 months? And for us, like incorporating that into the product strategy and our product offering was huge. So like we wanted to nail it with the tote bags first before we tested out jewelry or travel bags or accessories outside of the original tote bag.
And to add on to your point about the customer survey, I can't emphasize that enough, because I think a lot of times companies might think, well, what does the customer want, instead of asking them, because sometimes they'll surprise you with what they actually want. And so the customer surveys are such a great way to find that out.
You're like, thank you, no. but you don't really know. And then you find out, and you can use that as a huge resource and tool to actually dive in even further or be more on the mark than you were before.
It's great advice to end on. Everybody, thank you so much. And thank you to Emily and Betsy.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all for coming.